Hey guys, welcome to the Bows. Today I'll be talking about Kamaru Usman. So Usman is coming off a crazy win over Jorge Masvidal. Personally, I never would have predicted Usman knocking out Jorge on the feet. I don't think anybody saw that coming. It's crazy to see how much better he gets from fight to fight. He's starting to finish his opponents more and more often now, and in more devastating fashion each time. Usman has beaten 4 of the top 5 contenders at welterweight, and he looks near unstoppable at this point. So what's his next fight? What makes sense? I think Colby Covington has the best claim to fight Usman again. Even though he got put away in the 5th round against Usman the first time around, it was the most competitive fight Usman's ever had. And the fight was amazing the first time, and will one day probably be recognized as a classic. That fight was that good. Also, there's no doubt that that fight would sell the best out of any other contender in the division right now that Usman could fight. There is beef between them. They'll definitely be trash talking again. The first fight was very back and forth. It would be super easy to make promos for that fight, and Colby got another win on his record after the Woodley fight. It just seems to make the most sense right now. But the other matchup people want to see is Usman versus Leon Edwards. Edwards hasn't lost since he last fought Usman back in 2015 when they were both coming up. He's now on an 8-fight win streak, and he was most likely on his way to beating Belal Muhammad, in my opinion. He was looking really sharp at the very least in that fight, you have to admit. He's the complete package with regards to his skill set. He's good everywhere, and he's big for the weight class. This is a great matchup that all hardcore MMA fans want to see. The only problem is that he's not as marketable as Colby, and he hasn't been very active. The last time Leon had fought was in July of 2019, and then of course he had the Belal fight, which went to a no contest. If he had won the last fight against Belal, though, he would have definitely had a title shot next, but unfortunately there was the accidental eye poke. It's just hard to sell that fight right now between Leon and Usman. He's a great fighter, but hasn't been able to be that active, and it's hard to give someone a title fight not coming off a win, despite how good Leon looked early in that fight with Belal. Leon has a fight ahead of him against Nate Diaz. If Leon gets past Nate, which I think is likely, then the only fight I want to see him in is against Usman for the belt. The last guy that is a super interesting fight for Usman is Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Wonderboy has a fight lined up with Gilbert Burns, and on paper, it's a good matchup for him. If he gets past Burns, then Usman versus Wonderboy, stylistically, is such an interesting fight. Wonderboy is so unlike any other fighter that Usman has ever seen. Wonderboy is going to have to worry about Usman's wrestling abilities, obviously, and I legitimately think that Wonderboy could give Usman some serious problems. I would still probably favor Usman just because how dominant of a champion Usman has been, but it's still a great fight. If Wonderboy beats Burns, he will be on a 3-fight win streak and will have wins over 3 very good opponents against Vicente Luque, Jeff Neal, and then Gilbert Burns. That's a pretty damn good resume. Also, he didn't only beat Luque and Neal, he kind of beat him up. Vicente had success early on against Wonderboy, but late in that fight, it was all Wonderboy. These 3 guys, Colby, Leon, and Wonderboy, are the 3 frontrunners, in my opinion, who deserve a title shot the most. And I think all 3 of them would be great fights. Lately, Usman has been calling for Michael Chiesa to fight him next. Michael Chiesa is a great fighter, and that definitely is an interesting matchup, but Chiesa needs at least 1 more win, in my opinion. Yes, he is on a 4-fight win streak, but 2 of those guys are against Diego Sanchez and Carlos Condit. Condit is past his prime, and Diego is way past his prime. He also sits right now as the number 6 contender, plus he's not a huge name for the general public yet. Hardcore fans obviously know who Chiesa is, but the average consumer who tunes into, McGregor fights, Adesanya fights, John Jones fights, Masvidal fights, may not know much about Michael Chiesa or his wrestling skill set or his resume, all of which are very impressive. Usman could just be calling for Chiesa to annoy Colby, because Colby has been very vocal about fighting Usman again, but regardless, there are at least 3 fights that make more sense right now than the Chiesa-Usman matchup. Alright, that's all I got today. Leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what you think about Usman and what you think is the next fight for him that makes the most sense. Till next time, peace.